Good evening. My name is Carl Arrow. I'm chairing this Legislative Redistricting Advisory Commission. We've had a number of public hearings so far, and now we're here to listen to you. But before we do, there's a couple of things I like to do at the start of every meeting. First of all, I'd like to introduce the members that are here. And let me first say that the Senate President could not be here this evening. However, to my left is the Speaker of the House, Adrian Jones. To my right is the Senate President Pro Tem Melanie Griffith. To her right is Chris West from Baltimore County, sitting in for Senator Simon Eyre. I think Delegate Lutke will be here, but I'm not 100% sure. Those of us who come north on 29 know what kind of challenge that can be sometimes. Anyway, so as you all probably know, and I've said before, redistricting is complicated, but it's an essential thing we have to do every decade. Primary objective is to build districts that will essentially create one person, one vote, so that no person's vote is worth more than anybody else's, and to provide voters with an opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. And here comes Delegate Lutke. So basically, population, as we all know, increases, but it doesn't increase evenly. Some areas gain, some areas lose, but it's how that all happens in relationship to each other areas. So you could gain a lot, but because other areas might lose or other areas might grow even more, you might not see any gains in seats. It's really it's a matter of how it all fits together. We obviously have legal and constitutional criteria to follow, and these criteria can often conflict. And so it becomes even more of a challenge to try to put together plans that will meet those, as well as deal with the fact that Maryland has a good deal of diversity, both in its population and in its geography. So we'll do the best we can with those things. So again, the Maryland General Assembly does have a constitutional responsibility to deal with this issue, and that's why we're here, and we're here to listen. So what I'm going to do now is turn this over to Michelle Davis, who is the lead redistricting person for the Nonpartisan Department of Legislative Services. She's going to do a quick briefing on the numbers and how they affect Howard County and I think Central Maryland to some extent. Michelle, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Davis, and I'm just going to briefly go over what the 2020 census, the results of the 2020 census, and what that means for redistricting going forward, especially for Howard County. Okay, so I always like to start with the numbers in case you don't already know them. For those of you who aren't familiar with adjusted population, the number at the top is the population for Maryland, but adjusted. And what that means is it's a little slightly different than the official 2020 census data. And that is because per Maryland statute, we adjust that number in order to take prisoners, or I should say count prisoners, not where they are incarcerated, but where they last lived, their last known address, for purposes of redistricting. So we don't actually move prisoners. Some people say that. When we do that, when we take prisoners and assign them back to their home addresses, of course that doesn't change the population total, right? Because we're just moving people. But the reason why the total is slightly different is because some prisoners, when they were incarcerated, were out-of-state residents, and we don't count them in the population that we use for redistricting. So that's why the number is slightly different. So it's slightly less than the census population. The other numbers are what we call the ideal district numbers for each type of district. So we have congressional districts, state legislative districts, and even on the local level, there'll be an ideal number depending on the population of the jurisdiction. But for congressional districts, Maryland has 8, and that is the number that we're trying to get to when we draw maps for each congressional district. it's an odd number, so obviously there's going to be a slight deviation there. You have to get as close as you can for congressional districts, so the difference might be 1, 2, 3 people. For the senatorial districts, the ideal number is what you see there. And then, as you know, in Maryland, we can subdivide the senatorial districts into 2-member or 3 single-member districts. So those are the ideal numbers for that. Take note that that's just an ideal number for the state legislative districts, meaning you can go plus or minus by a certain amount. Usually that amount generally is 5%, so minus 5%, plus 5%. So you have to take that into consideration too. This map here, I like to show all the counties and Baltimore City. It's a color-coded map, and it shows you just how much growth has happened since the last census. So over the last decade, from 2010 to 2020. And you can see that there are 4 counties that grew double-digit growth, and Howard County was one of them. Probably not a surprise, but you can also see sort of how surrounding counties did as well. So generally, what growth means, it means you get more legislative districts proportionately, you think, based on your growth. And so what this map, this close-up map shows is the existing districts, legislative districts that are on the ground now, and how under or overpopulated they are. So the blue is overpopulated, and green is within that 5% plus or minus deviation, and red, of course, is underpopulated. And you can see in Howard County, in the 9A and 9B area, and in that portion of 13, the districts are very overpopulated right now. So we have to take into account going forward when you're looking at new legislative maps, or we're trying to draw new legislative maps, you have to deal with that extra population, but it's not just your county, it's also what's going on around you in that region. So one thing that you can do is take that ideal number and calculate ideally how many legislative districts can fit into your county. So I did that for all of the counties, and I just have a snapshot here instead of the whole list. And of course, Howard County is on that list, and you gained a portion of a legislative district, as you can see when you compare 2010 to 2020. So that's sort of a starting point, but you also have to take into account, again, the population growth, or the opposite around you. So all those things sort of push and pull on what goes on in your county. So what does all that mean? It means that there'll definitely be shared districts in the Central Maryland region, including Howard County. Just by looking at the legislative district share numbers there, whenever you see 2.5, 6.5, that sort of thing, that means the other half has to be in another jurisdiction. So that's what we mean by shared districts. And I'll leave it there, and I'll just keep the first slide up so that you can see the numbers. And that's all for me.
There we go, thank you. One other little housekeeping thing. There are a couple email addresses that you can use to submit further testimony or submit maps if you choose. For testimony, it's testimony_LRAC@mlis.state.md.us, and for maps, it's maps_LRAC@mlis.state.md.us. Okay, so we'll get down to hearing from you all. The first person on my list I have is David Ryan. to, you get 5 minutes, and we'll try to be easy about that, but if you go on and on, we will ask you to, close it up. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, you all. Thank you very much for coming to Howard County and facilitating this testimony. My name is David Ryan, and I live at 4013 RJ Circle in Ellicott City. I like to think of myself as a local foot soldier for a wide range of political campaigns and issues within Howard County. I am a registered Democrat, but that doesn't mean that I follow in lockstep every position that my party takes. From school board to the General Assembly to statewide offices, I put much more stock into the pros and cons of specific issues and the character of individual candidates. So I am sincere when I say that I applaud the intentions and goals of both the governor-appointed Maryland Citizens Redistricting Committee and the Legislative Redistricting Advisory Commission, Commission's committee, forgive me, all right. What do I see in the new districts? Well, I do like the consideration of expanding the number of single-member districts, delegate districts. I do like to see that expansion of single-member delegate districts. I currently reside in a one-delegate district. I've also volunteered in the Annapolis office of a delegate who is part of a multi-delegate district. Now, it just seems intuitive to me that single-member delegate districts can be more efficient, and that's really easier for the voters. Now, I feel strongly that Senate districts should encompass whole communities. Specifically, Ellicott City, where I reside, I believe should be in one Senate district and not split among multiple districts for the following reasons. Historic Ellicott City has unique needs that require the sustained focus of our representatives. You all have heard it on the news. It's nothing new. We have some unique needs here. If the town is split between 2 or 3 districts, who takes ownership of those needs? And whom do we turn to? And who is accountable if things are not going well? The Route 40 business district, including the new Korean Way, is part of Ellicott City, and it should be in the historic Ellicott City Senate District. The 2 business districts operate synergistically and should not be split. Now, as part of my research, I looked up the laws regarding redistricting, and it says that political boundaries should be respected. The specific language is, due regard shall be given to natural boundaries and the boundaries of political subdivisions. I believe this supports my belief that Ellicott City should be in one Senate district. Finally, the law requires that the county courthouse be in Ellicott City, the county seat. You may know that we have a new county courthouse that opened in July. I believe that courthouse should be part of the Ellicott City District, as it always has been. However, the new county courthouse is now right outside District 9. I imagine it would be easy to include it in the Ellicott City Senate District going forward. Again, it's important that the courthouse be connected to the county seat of Ellicott City. In summary, let me conclude. I like the consideration of single-member districts where it makes sense, and I believe strongly that Ellicott City should be in one Senate district. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. The next person I have is James Handley.
Good evening, Speaker Jones, delegates, senators, Mr. Chair, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to hear from Howard County citizens as part of the redistricting process. My name is James Hanley. My wife Garima and son Akash live in Ellicott City in District 9B. I'm an attorney. Before law school, I was a cavalry officer in the United States Army. In full transparency, I'm the president of the Ellicott City and Western Howard Democratic Club. However, this evening I'm testifying in my personal capacity. I'm testifying in support of a General Assembly map that ensures that Ellicott City, including historic Ellicott City and the Circuit Courthouse, remain in a unified district. The Ellicott City community deserves its own district where its elected representatives can focus on issues that community prioritizes. The recent census numbers confirmed what many of us already know, that Ellicott City has grown exponentially, and it's one of the fastest growing communities in the state. In addition to gaining in population, Ellicott City continues to increase in diversity. Voters in District 9 are chiefly concerned with the quality of their children's education and the adverse effects of climate change. While both of these issues are not uniquely local, Ellicott City's challenges with both concerns require local knowledge and experience. Only a unified district, including all portions of Ellicott City, can ensure that the community's priorities are sufficiently represented in the General Assembly. As you are no doubt aware, the governor's allegedly nonpartisan maps cut up Ellicott City. The governor's maps fail to adhere to the state's basic requirements that the districts be compact in form and give due regard to natural and political boundaries. Neither of the two districts, named 27 and 14, are compact, and both would create boundaries and crisscross natural borders and political divisions. District 27, which would include Old Ellicott City, would go as far south as Laurel at the opposite end of the county. In addition to keeping a unified Ellicott City within District 9, there are some additional changes that would have wide support based on my conversations in the community. First, any new map should reduce or eliminate as best as possible inclusion of Carroll County precincts, a small portion of Carroll County with a different form of county government and different priorities. Second, any map should change District 9's 2-1 subdelegate split with a larger 2-delegate subdistrict covering the eastern portion of District 9. This change would reflect the increasing population of Ellicott City, a large community that deserves additional representation in Annapolis. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, I have William Adams.
Good evening. I'm kind of a layman at this, but I thought I would share some observations from a county resident layman's point of view that may be useful. First of all, I was concerned about the use of certain major roads as boundaries. And major roads look like natural boundaries, on a map at least. But in reality, they can be corridors that more define an actual constituency than bound it. 40, for example, is clearly a business corridor, and it's a defining feature for the businesses along it and the adjacent neighborhoods that trade there. So splitting any long segment of 40 from north to south into different districts doesn't feel good to me. I noted just looking over at Baltimore County that kind of the same thing was happening in Catonsville, that they're splitting it right down Frederick Road north to south, and I don't know how they feel about it. Doesn't make sense to me. US 29, which being a limited access road and therefore not a business corridor in the same sense as 40, simply bisects the community. It doesn't bound communities. It more or less binds them. It splits the heart of Ellicott City, which is in fact the county seat physically, but it doesn't split it socially, economically, or politically, or to any other good end that I can see. US 29 is not a natural political boundary. US 29 is not a reason to split Ellicott City, the county seat. It's a map feature. And it makes sense as a boundary, I think, mostly to people who have studied the issue as a map and not as a community. Then moving on, the governor's map, to me, does a lot of gratuitous redistricting. The purpose of redistricting, as explained to me, is to equalize populations and conform to the Constitution in a sort of one man, one vote setup. To that point, there's a great deal of redistricting being done that moves big gobs of people from one old district over to another old district, and then there aren't enough people there, and they grab some people from over here and put them in it, and then they grab some people back, and there's an awful lot of shuffling around of really significant communities that doesn't seem to contribute anything to the ostensible purpose of redistricting. Personally, in my experience, most businesses, most politically active voters, most socially active people involved in causes or anything else really don't like being redistricted. They develop relationships with their representatives over years, over multiple terms. They develop relationships with their staff. They use their constituent services. And most of them who know our legislatures at any level from Congress right on down don't necessarily feel they want to reboot the whole thing and learn a whole new network when they're getting things done the way things are. I have some concern, having knocked a lot of doors for different causes and campaigns in what's the new 14, as to just the geographic size of it. The old SD9 was already the biggest district that has any significant part in Howard County. In addition to being big, it's hilly, long property fronts in many cases. I know from talking to representatives over the years that it's a challenge to cover all that geography, and that there's certainly challenges for anyone organizing anything, issue campaigns or whatever on a district-wide basis. And so, to me, just a little more geographically compact district would make sense. And finally, I was disappointed that Howard County still ends up with 2 districts that cross county lines. That's one of the most unfortunate things that happens, and I know it's unavoidable, but with the growth in the counties, I think many of us here were hoping that that could get back to a circumstance of just crossing one county line. In recent cycles, in recent years, the Carroll County portion had been shrinking of old District 9. And I'm one of many, I think, that hoped the trend was for that to go away eventually. And I'm sorry to see they sort of reversed that trend and are adding now to the Carroll County portion. And for a lot of reasons I could give, but don't have time to, and didn't plan on doing here. I think it's something to be thought about as to whether that's what we want to do. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I contributed something, and I appreciate all of you being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next person I have is Grace Kubovchik. Am I close?
Good evening, Chairman Aro and Madam Secretary and members of the Commission. I'm delighted to welcome you to Howard County. It's a county I've lived in for 52 years in Ellicott City, and I love it. Howard County, compared to our adjacent members, our adjacent counties, is geographically very small. But it is blessed by having boundaries that are natural, and those are rivers. The Patapsco River, the Southern Patapsco, and the Patuxent River. All of our legislative districts are diverse. All have strong communities of interest. District 9, in which I live, encompasses the entire Ellicott City Historic District, about 1.5 miles from my home, and the county's government seat. It includes Route 40, its retail, its business hubs, and many residential suburban communities. Going further west are significant historic properties and the county's rural west. Our single-member district includes the historic district. Our two-person district in the west also includes parts of Carroll County. District 12 starts in the center of Howard County and crosses into Baltimore County. From my point of view, that provides an important connection. It's the National Road, Frederick Road, to Catonsville. It goes south, that district, to Elkridge and east to the city line. Both of these districts, 9 and 12, encompass a Maryland designated heritage area. District 12 has an educational synergy, rather unique. It includes Howard County Community College, Catonsville Community College, and UMBC. It also includes downtown Columbia, Howard County's General Hospital, and numerous retail venues and suburban neighborhoods. The 12th district is an at-large 3-member district. District 13, East Columbia, Savage, North Laurel, Jessup, and Guilford, has major transportation corridors: I-95, Route 32, Route 1, and Route 29. It is our county's industrial corridor, home to numerous cybersecurity complexes and Johns Hopkins Applied Physics campus. It has many suburban residential communities. And similar to District 12, it is a 3-member at-large district. I like variety. And our county represents that variety in its districts. I support single, I support multi, and at-large legislative districts. Somebody has already mentioned the Circuit Court building. It has to be moved into whatever district is connected to Ellicott City. And finally, I want to thank you for your attention to the speakers that are coming after me and the ones that have come before me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person I have is Beth Huffnegle.
Good evening, Chair Arrow and the commissioners. My name is Beth Huffnegle. I represent the League of Women Voters of Howard County. And I have to say, this is the first time I've testified when the commission has already responded to my recommendations. In the third paragraph, we had 3 recommendations. We asked that the commission release your draft maps this week, and you've released them yesterday. It's very exciting. So thank you very much. Do appreciate that. And along with the census data, and this is ample time for the public to respond. I'm also anticipating that I will get the shape files, the GIS files that were requested, and hopefully I've been promised them, so I think they'll be coming. There is still time to have an open meeting where you discuss how you get from your 4 maps to your single map. I found that to be very instructive listening to other commissioners. This is hard, and to share some of those hard choices that you have to make with the public, I think is very informative and gives them an appreciation for how much work districting is. I'd like to return to my written testimony when I'm getting to the specifics of Howard County and to the legislative districts. On that paragraph, in 2011, Howard County was fractured into 3 different congressional districts. We understand that, adjoining more populous counties, Howard will be split. However, we ask that you split us into only 2 congressional districts and select a boundary that already divided communities. One example would be Interstate 95, although I'm not making specific requests. As far as the legislative maps, which we have not seen yet, The population of Howard County requires 8+ state delegate districts and 2+ state Senate districts. One senatorial and delegate districts can be shared with Baltimore County, as District 12 is now, but wherever that one shared district is, we ask that it cross the boundary cleanly and not be split up between the other county and Howard County geographically. We also ask that you respect the 5 communities of interest. And I've attached the general plan from Howard County 2020. We do not have any cities, so sometimes it's hard to figure out exactly when someone says Ellicott City, what are they referring to? So I included a map of the 2020 general plan with those boundaries marked. Rural West, Columbia, Ellicott City, Elkridge, and the Southeast. I've also attached a map as an example of what a Howard County delegate district could look like. This was drawn by a nonpartisan group, the Princeton Gerrymandering Project. And I've included that map if you would like for the entire state. Howard County also boasts the largest percentage increase in Asian American voters in the state. According to the census, we ask that you consider these geographical location when drawing both congressional and legislative district lines. Drawing maps that are fair to the entire population of Maryland, while putting aside the desires of the affected incumbents, requires bold leadership, but is consistent with your charge to serve all the people of Maryland. We appreciate you taking the time to hold public hearings. Also appreciate that you released draft maps so soon, and we hope that the information obtained will be reflected in your next draft map, and that you continue, and as you have, to take public comments into consideration. Thank you so much for coming out to Howard County this evening.
Thank you very much. Shahan Rizvi.
Good evening, esteemed members of the Legislative Redistricting Advisory Commission. My name is Shahan Rizvi. I live in 6393 Windharp Way, Columbia, Maryland. I've lived in this state my entire life. Several of my formative years were actually in Prince George's and the other half in Howard County. I'm a proud homeowner here and a Muslim community leader. I'm also chairman of the Howard County Democratic Central Committee, and all in all, a public servant dedicated to the state and this county, Howard County. I'm here today to testify my concerns with the proposed redistricting of the current Senate District 9, which would be split in the governor's maps proposal between District 14 and Senate District 27. There's numerous problems with that map. First, as everyone has already pointed out before me, we've got to keep these communities together, and this plan does the exact opposite. The plan splits Ellicott City in half at 29 and 40, as other folks have mentioned. These maps split business districts, as well as neighborhoods east and west of that line that share similarities. It also splits Korean Way and Route 40 between those two districts. Second, someone also earlier before me pointed out the Constitution states due regard shall be given to political boundaries. The maps cross multiple political subdivisions. Senate 27 would cross Baltimore County, Howard County, as well as then 4 of the 5 Howard County Council districts, which we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then Senate District 14 in the new map would cross political subdivision lines of Carroll and Howard County. And as some folks have already pointed out, Carroll County and Howard County are very different. Carroll has a commissioner county with 8 incorporated towns. Howard County is a charter county with no incorporated towns. The counties have different needs than in the state legislature as a result. Third, with the recent census figures, the population of District 9, according to 2020 census, is 144,375. It needs to be within 5% of that average, which we have sort of laid out already, 131,000 and change. So all the districts are substantially equal in size, which we understand. So the districts do need to shrink, and the governor's proposed maps do account for the shrinkage. However, There's no reason for it to all grow in Carroll County. We could fit the entirety of District 9 within Howard County, thus keeping Ellicott City together and not crossing into a very different county, as some folks have already pointed out. Our residents are proud of the current leadership in place here in Howard County, especially in District 9, and the governor's maps break apart those communities and its current elected leadership, and that's no good. And lastly, just as a resident of Columbia, the commission's proposal, for Howard County, the governor's maps, it also, offers drastic changes for our current districts. Lines are shifted dramatically, districts are renumbered for no reason, and 7 of our 12 sitting legislators are then crammed into a single district, which would compact Columbia, where I live, into just one district, significantly and intentionally diminishing the influence of its residents. It would also condense nearly half of the Black and Latino populations of the county into this district, similarly diminishing the influence of these residents. The stated goal of the commission was to supposedly undo gerrymandering, but this proposed solution is undoubtedly creating confusion and turmoil in our communities, and I implore this commission not to allow the governor's proposed maps for Howard County to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Rizwan Siddiqui.
Thank you so much, and good evening. My name is Rizwan Siddiqui, and I'm a resident of 5410 Josie Court, Ellicott City, Maryland, in District 9B. I'm writing to express concerns with the proposed map, specifically Senate District 27. As specified in Section 4, Article 3 of the Maryland Constitution, and I quote here, each legislative district shall consist of adjoining territory, be compact in form, and of substantially equal population. Due regard shall be given to national boundaries and the boundaries of political subdivision, unquote. So a couple of things I want to mention here as a concern is the boundaries of political subdivision are wholly disregarded as a part of this process. So Senate District 27, which crosses county lines, Baltimore County and Howard County, and Councilmanic District, 4 out of the Howard County Council District. This makes it unnecessarily complex for constituents and representatives to engage with one another. A Baltimore County resident would not assume that their senator is a Howard County resident and vice versa. The same issue arises in Senate District 14, which crosses the political subdivision lines of Carroll and Howard counties. These jurisdictions have distinctly differing populations, and due regard must be given in these maps, just because of the culture of those counties. Second item is the plan gives little regard for neighborhood boundaries and main thoroughfares. As drawn, this map splits business districts as well as neighborhoods. This makes no sense for those living in these areas and those representing these areas. I strongly recommend that these areas should remain intact as much as possible. The third item is the population of Howard County has increased significantly, as those numbers which were presented earlier over the last decade. This increase has made it possible for the entire senatorial district to be contained within the Howard County rather than dividing it into 2 separate sections. I strongly recommend that the districts must remain in one county to the extent possible. Related to local political districts should be drawn to make the most sense for the constituents and residents. It is always good to have the people represented by those who live in the county boundaries, and subdivisions should be fully accounted for, and maps should be drawn as simple as possible to minimize confusion. Therefore, I like to oppose this plan and would like to submit my written testimony on file in addition to my verbal, which I did. Thank you so much for your time and opportunity.
Thank you. Tony McGuffin.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to thank Chairman Arrow and the Speaker and the rest of the committee for giving us this opportunity. I appreciate it. My name's Tony McGuffin. I live at 8672 Main Street, Ellicott City. I've spent most of my life in Ellicott City and about a third of it at that address. Now, you notice how relaxed we all are and everything. Well, I think I'm not the only one that expected to be able to speak for 3 minutes, not 5. So, you know, it's relax and just deliver it. Anyway, I would repeat, so I did look up the COMAR regulations as well, as far as the districts being made up of adjoining territory, compact and farm, with regard given to natural boundaries and boundaries of political subdivisions. I'm going to focus mostly on the natural boundaries when we get to that. But a couple of quick notes, because I feel the proposed legislative maps really miss some of those targets. Ellicott City is the county seat. Ellicott City is about to, like in 8 weeks from now, is going to celebrate its 250th anniversary. Hate to see it split up. As a county seat, though, as others have mentioned, the Ellicott City people do expect for the new courthouse to be a part of the district. And it does look easy, seeing the numbers, it doesn't look as easy now, but that precinct 2-4 is very close to the already existing the current 9B district, so the courthouse would be an easy addition, it would seem. Also, you'll notice in the map there's a kind of a hole in it near there. There's the adjacent precincts of 220 and 221 in Dorsey Hall that really you'd think would be included in our legislative district. Dorsey Hall is totally Ellicott City. It's not Columbia, it's across one way from Columbia, but the Ellicott City is its downtown. And in fact, all the addresses in Dorsey Hall are Ellicott City. So that subdivision does exist. Another Route 40, that's where we shop. There is no other, we don't go into other counties to shop. Route 40 is the main shopping area for Ellicott City residents. I mean, we get our gas, groceries, banking, go to restaurants. That's the neighborhood. I would hate to see that split. Now, not only is Route 40 the main shopping district, but it's also a part of the Tiber-Hudson floodplain, the watershed. This is a natural boundary that I think needs the most attention right now. This, as far as these proposals, I would consider the most harmful, dangerous, even life-threatening mistake in the proposals is the political amputation of Ellicott City proper, the main street, the little historic district, from the rest of Ellicott City. The proposals ignore the fact that all of Ellicott City subdivision, the whole thing, is part of that floodplain. Now, I'm at 8672 Main Street. I see that flood go by, and it's all to the west of us that the work needs to be done. The mitigation is to the west, and it is ongoing. We shouldn't interrupt that, would be my strong opinion. And that watershed is that all-important natural boundary here that I think we cannot ignore, and it should prohibit any such division. The new proposal cuts off just the last 1.5 miles of that floodplain, the 1.5 miles that matters most, the 1.5 miles that's famously and tragically underwater in 2016 and 2018. The fix is in the subsequent Ellicott City Watershed Plan, which is in process and identifies and establishes Ellicott City proper and Ellicott City surrounding Tiber-Hudson watershed as political and natural boundaries. The watershed integrates strategies that need to be coordinated throughout that whole community, consisting of the entire Tiber-Hudson watershed. It's critical to the success of our mitigation plans. Also, further adding Ellicott City proper to the Laurel District would encumber the efforts in both Ellicott City, as well as divide attention and resources from Laurel's own huge project, the Route 1 Revitalization Project, which has also recently seen some hard-fought progress. Should we now suddenly interrupt these two huge projects and force both jurisdictions to reorganize with new local and state representatives, perhaps, and all the myriad entities that are involved in these projects? Is there any benefit or wisdom in causing the currently successful county and state government approaches to be reconfigured in both Ellicott City and Laurel? I don't think so. And I thank you very much for hearing my testimony.
Thank you. I have Andrea Chamblee.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to Howard County. I'm going to have a terrible time with my mask between my hearing aids and my earrings. I guess I could save a lot of time by saying ditto. I came here to say that. My lead, however, is that I'm in 9A, and the disruption of the representation in my district is hard to understand and hard to explain. It's not fair to the representative that has to represent people of such varying interests of Howard County and Carroll County. It's not fair to the voters that can't benefit from the focus and attention that's needed because the issues just vary too much. You've heard about the environmental issues in Ellicott City, the farming issues in Carroll County, the commuting issues in Columbia, and it dilutes the interests of all these constituents when they can't be addressed. And Katie Fry-Hester has been a marvelous representative for our district. She has expertise in cybersecurity that's benefited the whole state. And I'd like to see a district that can take advantage of her expertise and as well as address our interests. For me, this is personal. I've lived in or around Howard County for 59 years. When my dad came here, he wanted to be a businessman, so he bought a house zoned commercial, and we lived in a commercial zoned house when we got here, and he had that house until it was taken to build Route 32. My mom has a gift with fabric textile arts, and she opened a store in Ellicott City. So we got to see their interests and needs firsthand, and they're very different, and they deserve the attention. I've experienced them, and you've heard lots of information about that already, and I'm glad you can use these local visits to get educated where you don't already know about the issues that affect the folks. People have already talked about the requirements to keep the districts compact. And we've talked about the size, and there's already a size issue with our district. And you're aware of that, so I won't go into it. But in some, Ellicott City's interests are about his local tourism and flood damage and small businesses. Columbia, their interests are related a lot to commuting. That really upsets the quality of life for families when you have to leave home before the kids leave for school and you get back when it's too late to help them with their homework. So their interests are very different. And I know you'll try to be respectful to all of us and all our interests when you keep Ellicott City together and keep Howard County as close together as you can without involving other counties. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have Melissa Villegas.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. My story might be a little bit different. I come from California. My husband's family comes from Oregon. We did not grow up with a community that I felt I was tethered to, felt at home with. We moved a lot. It wasn't until the military at the age of 17 that I felt I was a part of a community. And I learned that even if you have people from all over the country, you're deployed, you're overseas by yourself with people you've never would have run across in your regular life back home, that you can be a part of a community. And when I was thinking about this today, I thought the main part of community is unity. You can still keep a group together that's extremely diverse, that comes from all walks of life, by unifying that group. And something I think is kind of magical about Ellicott City and Howard County is that we have people who have been here their whole life, and then you have a neighbor next to you who has just moved here from a different country. And when we invite family and friends to visit us, they notice that. And the redistricting that happened in the schools the last couple of years, we saw all these maps for months go up on the board. And when the redistricting happened, we had neighbors who relied on car transportation from a friend, who relied on babysitters after school. And when that redistricting happened and they pulled Dorsey Hall across the street to another school, they couldn't ask that neighbor anymore. So these decisions have very real impacts on families, and we understand the need to do redistricting. We just ask that you do it with integrity and compassion for the people who live through the redistricting. And I'm in 9B, I live by the Miller Library, and I hope that Maryland is my forever home, and thank you for having me tonight to speak. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Kimberly Egan?
Good evening. I think I'm the only person testifying from the rural west of Howard County. My name is Kim Egan, and I'm here to testify in opposition to District 9, along with everyone else, which in the new proposal is District 14. I live at Jennings Chapel Road, Lisbon, Maryland, and I've lived in Howard County, western Howard County, for 15 years, which in this group makes me a newcomer. For the first 5 years I lived in Howard County, I was practicing law at a large law firm in Washington, D.C., and for the last 10 years I've been practicing out of my home in Lisbon. I am an active member of the Maryland equestrian community and currently serve as the co-president of the Maryland Horse Council, which is the trade association for the statewide horse industry. Howard County has more horses per square mile than any county in Maryland, but also more than any county in the United States. So it's no small thing. I oppose the new Senate District 14 because it would be comprised of two counties that have different forms of government, different geographical orientations, and different local concerns. As you've heard, Carroll County is a commissioner county with 8 incorporated towns, whereas we are charter with no incorporated towns. This means the extent of county jurisdiction over local issues is different, and it means the extent of the state legislature's involvement in local issues is different. This affects public safety, land use, and transportation. In addition, there are specific reasons that people choose to live in Carroll County versus Howard County. Carroll County residents, to the extent they must commute, are more likely to commute to Frederick or to Baltimore City. Howard County residents are more likely to commute to the I-270 corridor, to the close-in suburbs of Montgomery County, to Columbia, or to northern Anne Arundel County. The Howard County Public Schools have a larger and more diverse population than do those of Carroll County, and property values in Howard County are significantly higher. To the extent that any other county shares interests with the rural west, it is the agricultural reserve area of northeastern Montgomery County, which is in the Patuxent watershed, as are we, not Carroll County. Taken together, this means that the issues that concern Carroll County are not only different, but often in opposition to the issues that affect the rural west. It would be difficult for any individual from either party to represent the needs of both simultaneously. Carroll County deserves a Senate focused on itself, and Western Howard County deserves the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a J. Gerardin.
Thank you so much. I'm Jay Gerardin, a resident of Howard County. It's nice to see you all here, out here in Howard County, Madam Speaker, Chair, and Senators, and the delegates. I'd like to make a few comments on the proposed congressional districts And I followed the other parallel effort, the Citizens Districting Panel. And to be honest, I haven't really heard much of your work, and I'm not really impressed with the maps. It's about as bad as it has been for the last 10 years. If you look at the governor's panel, which consists of 3 people from both major parties and represented by independents. And they've worked for 7 months. They've heard input from like 40,000 people around the state. A major effort, okay? They put their product out there as well. And if you look at just the congressional map, I think it's far superior to any one of the 4 that I've seen from your proposal. It's compact and contiguous and compact and easily understood by anybody in the state. You have Western Maryland, you have Montgomery County, you have Prince George's County, you have Southern Maryland, you have Anne Arundel and Howard County, Baltimore City, Southern Baltimore County, and the Eastern Shore. Very, very simple. Your maps are not even anywhere close to that. So when you meet on the 6th of December, I believe, for a special session, I would suggest that you also factor in the governor's plan. It's not just the governor, it's the input of like 40,000 of our citizens around the country, around the state rather. That really should at least, if you don't vote on it, you should at least have it up there as reference to your 4 that you're proposing. Because you'll only be looking at the congressional seats in December, no legislative, and it's much, much, much cleaner. If you were to land at Baltimore, BWI, and you would look at a map of where you had appropriated, like where tourists might go, these are areas that you could, a person from out of the state or in the state could easily understand. All your 4 options, nobody understands. It's appalling to most anybody that would look at them. Nobody could explain them. So I would urge, if you could please at least consider these things when you look at the districts, at least have it up for reference and consider it, because it does reflect the work of a lot of people. I attended a number of these meetings. I testified in one. It's transparent. Please don't ignore the input of the citizens. We're looking at our plan for our representation for the next 10 years. All that work certainly deserves a place at the table when you're meeting in a special session on the 6th of December. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you coming out here.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have 3 other names that didn't check in, but I'm going to call them just to see if they might have turned up. Josh Friedman, Byron McFarland, and Ann Jones. No? Okay. Is there anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry. What do I have?
Good evening. My name is Josh Friedman. I live in Columbia, Maryland. I'm here to testify largely unfavorably to the maps that were proposed by the Governor's Citizen Commission. Just at the outset, I feel that the Governor's Citizen Redistricting Commission, while I have no intentions of impugning the integrity or the ethics of any of the individuals involved, I believe that commission is impossible to square with either the Constitution of the state or the laws of the state. Our law in Maryland clearly states that party central committees organize the Democratic and Republican parties. So to have a commission that consists of individuals purported to represent the Republican Party or the Democratic Party when they were not chosen by their respective parties is impossible to square with Maryland law. And so therefore I take the Citizens Review Commission, Citizens Redistricting Commission, I don't consider that to be the work of a bipartisan or a nonpartisan endeavor. Specifically here in Howard County, it's interesting, at the beginning of this meeting we mentioned the trials and tribulations of driving on Route 29. Here in Howard County, we're actively trying to smash down the concept of Route 29 as a barrier, whether it is a barrier for who represents you in Annapolis or in Washington, whether it affects where you attend schools. We don't want Route 29 to be a boundary. We are building bridges. We are building overhead bridges to help our residents no longer see Route 29 as a boundary. So to that end, I must first express my deep opposition to the dissolution of current District 9, what is being proposed as District 14. This district, splitting Ellicott City in half along Route 29 is simply impossible to square with the Constitution of the state, and it's wrong. It's wrong at a time when Ellicott City has so many needs to be able to split the district in half and have one side represented by potentially, one side have to go off into Carroll County and another side have to go down and be represented by somebody as far away as Laurel or Jessup. It's unconscionable at this time. And I think this sentiment was echoed back in 2003. If you'll recall, the 2002 redistricting ended up in our Court of Appeals. And our Court of Appeals unambiguously stressed the importance of respecting political subdivisions and respecting county boundaries wherever possible. Senate District 9 grew in population significantly, over 140,000 residents. There is simply no need, there is no legislative need to push Senate District 9, or District 14, if you will, to put that district further into Carroll County. It is impossible to square with the Court of Appeals decision that was made in 2002. And along those lines, the Court of Appeals also suggested that we lean very heavily at historical alliances and district alignments. And to that end, I'm very concerned about, I feel the Commission is trying to have it both ways. In one breath, have a district that wholly encompasses Columbia, but then also splits Ellicott City apart. You can't have it both ways. So I'm concerned about Districts 26 and 27, splitting Jessup and Laurel off from Columbia. It simply violates the historical precedent and is a slap in the face to people in Columbia who rely on those neighborhoods in Jessup and Laurel both to work and also to utilize public transportation. So I believe District 27, and to take Columbia out of that picture and now say that the folks in Jessup and Laurel will be represented by a legislator from Ellicott City violates the precedent and the spirit and intent that our Court of Appeals opined in 2003. So I would ask that you reject District 27 and give very strong weight to considering the historic alliance between Jessup, Laurel, and Columbia, and preserve what is essentially right now District 13 as it is intact. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.
Thank you. Okay, so Byron McFarlane is not here, and Ann Jones is not here. Is there anybody else who wants to comment before we adjourn? No? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. It's been a very informative evening.